Okay, great. So, to start out, I'm Susan. I am the Sustainability Program Manager for the City of South Portland, and I will be your benchmarking contact for any South Portland buildings. I'm joined today with Erin Ferrell of the City of Portland's Sustainability Office, and she will be your contact for any Portland buildings if you have any questions. Okay, so today what we're going to go over is the timeline for reporting, requirements for both cities, how to comply with the ordinance. We're going to do a quick demo on Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We're going to talk about a few exemptions or waivers and how to apply for those. We're going to do a quick introduction into Beam, which is a benchmarking tool that both cities recently started using. And then if you have any questions, please save them for the end because we'll have time to answer all questions. All right. So the benchmarking schedule for both cities are slightly different in when buildings start reporting. Erin, do you want to start with talking about the schedule for Portland?
Sure. So yeah, like Susan said, both cities have very similar requirements, but our timeline for when buildings are required to report are a little bit different. So this year, the City of Portland ordinance requires single tenant buildings 20,000 square feet or more to report by May 1st. And in our ordinance, it states that multi-tenant buildings 20,000 square feet or larger will start reporting once the utility is able to provide whole building aggregated data in a convenient online format. And we, although this platform is in the works with the utility, it's just not readily available for building owners to use. So we anticipate that we will have all of our covered buildings, single and multi-tenant, will start reporting in 2024. So again, this year it's just single tenant buildings in Portland. And if we haven't already been in touch and you are representing a multi-tenant building in Portland, please let me know, and I'll make sure that I don't keep bugging you this year about reporting.
All right. And so for South Portland, it's a little bit different. So last year, large residential buildings were not required to report. This year, all buildings 20,000 square feet or larger are required to report. So for multi-tenant buildings, this will mean that you'll need to request energy and water use data from your tenants. We realize that it's possible not all tenants will respond with that information. In that situation, just give us the information that you do have, and we'll show you how to enter partial building data on Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And then for large apartment or residential buildings, since that platform that Erin was talking about is not yet available to get aggregated whole building data, there is an opportunity to apply for a waiver this year if each of the tenants or units have their own utility accounts. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I did want to mention that. So this year, buildings for both cities must report by Monday, May 1st. For South Portland, multi-tenant building owners must give their tenants 30 days notice for data. And since we are coming up on that 30-day point before May 1st, I would suggest if you haven't requested that data yet, go ahead and do that. And if your benchmarking report has any errors, upon notice, you'll have 30 days to correct them. So if you have any questions, if you're not sure if you need to report this year, or if you got a letter and you're pretty sure that you don't need to report, please reach out to either Erin or myself. Again, Erin is your contact for Portland buildings, and I'm your contact for South Portland buildings. Okay, so both Portland and South Portland have benchmarking websites. They both have the same information, but a slightly different layout. So I did want to go to both to just show you what those look like and how to find the information that you might be looking for. So this is the Portland benchmarking website. Just give me a second. Okay. So the first thing I want to show you is this unique building ID. So every building has its own unique building ID. Click this. And this list shows the property address with the unique building ID. And you'll need this number when you're creating your property in Portfolio Manager. So you can just copy and paste that if you need to. Okay. And then additionally, for upcoming trainings, I did want to mention we do have another training on April 5th, and that's going to be more of an opportunity for people to drop in if they have specific questions. So feel free to register for that as well. We also do have some self-help videos. So we have our full benchmarking training video from last year posted here. We also will be sending out this training afterwards to everyone that's registered. And then if you have specific questions, like you're getting a very specific error message in Portfolio Manager, we also have some smaller videos that if you go to this energy benchmarking playlist, you can search to see if your question is answered in one of those videos as well. Okay, and then the South Portland benchmarking website. Okay, so if you scroll down here, we've got this list of covered properties with assigned unique building IDs. So those are the building IDs for South Portland properties. It looks a little differently, but there's still this building address with the unique building ID. You could ignore this column of first reporting year because this year all buildings are required to report. And then for ours, if you want to sign up for trainings or look at tutorials that we've posted, you can click on this here. And the full benchmarking workshop from last year is here, as well as those videos of how to fix some specific error messages or questions that might come up in Portfolio Manager. So I will go back to this. All right. So again, Erin's the contact for Portland buildings. Her email address and phone number are there. I'm your contact for South Portland buildings. Again, email, phone number. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help. And we are going to move on to a quick Energy Star Portfolio Manager demo. So if you are new to Portfolio Manager, you're going to need to create a new account. For right now, we're just going to sign in with the City of South Portland account. Okay. So once you're into Portfolio Manager, you'll need to add your property. So you click here. So you'll start by selecting your property type. I would just select whatever is the closest to what your building is if the exact use of your building is not listed, but it does have a lot of options. So there should be something pretty similar. For this test building, I'm going to say that I'm doing a bank branch. Okay, and then for this part, your property's buildings, we're going to say it's 1. For this more than 1, the only time you would select this is if you have multiple buildings that share 1 meter. If you just have multiple buildings on one property, I would create a different property for each of the buildings unless they share a meter. And if that is the case that they do share a meter, I would go to this campus guidance to get a little more clarity about how to enter that information. And then all buildings should be existing buildings. So we'll get started. Name your building. Again, if you have multiple buildings on the same property, just make sure for each of these that you name it something that you'll know what it is. So if it's building A, you can just call it this. It's fine if it has the same address for multiple buildings. Just make sure that you know which one is which. Okay, and then for the year built, if you don't know the exact year that your building was built, that's okay. Give us your best estimate. And then if you do find out that specific information later, you can always go back and change any of this information. For gross floor area, everything should be 20,000 square feet or more. If your gross floor area is less than 20,000 square feet, please reach out to either Erin or myself. It's likely that you will not need to report. For irrigated area, you don't need to enter or worry about this. And then for occupancy, you should select 100% occupancy, no matter what, even if part of your building is vacant, just for these purposes, say that it's 100%. Okay, so for standard IDs, this is the UBID or unique building ID list that I was showing you before. So we'll click on this and scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see this unique building identifier or UBID. We'll select that. And I'm going to go back to my UBID list for South Portland here. Let's say I've got this first one. I would just copy that, go back to Portfolio Manager, and you can paste it there. And then for this final piece, do any of these apply? My property's energy consumption includes parking areas or drive-through bank services. So neither Portland or South Portland is requiring you to report parking area information. If you do believe that a parking area is included in your gross floor area and that your building would otherwise be under 20,000 square feet, again, please reach out to us. It's possible that you might not need to report. Continue. Okay, so you'll see all of your information here. If anything's off, this is a chance for you to edit. Then we scroll down. The only thing you need to include here is your gross floor area. You don't need to enter any of the rest of this information. And then we will do add property. This will come up just because we didn't enter that, but that's okay. Just press continue. Okay, so congratulations, you've successfully created your property. This is my building. Once you enter information, you'll start to see some numbers in here instead of that not available message. And over time, you will start to see a trend line here as well. If we go to this details page, this is where you'd need to update any information if something changed or if you realize the information that you initially entered wasn't accurate. So for example, let's say you didn't have your unique building ID when you first made your property. You could edit that here. And then scroll down and just make that edit. Continue. Okay. All right, so we are ready to start entering some energy data. So under the energy tab, you'll want to enter, it's both the electricity and your heating information. So we'll start by making an electricity meter by clicking this add a meter. And then we'll click electric. We will say it is purchased from the grid. And then how many meters? We're going to say it's one. You might have multiple, or if you're a multi-tenant building, just enter the number that you have for that building and get started. Okay. So for your meter, if you do have multiple electric meters that you're going to be entering for a property, we suggest that you name your meter the same thing as your account number, just so you can keep track of what meter is which. So I'm going to go up here to this bills. So this is just a sample CMP bill. You can find your account number right here. So I would just copy and paste that at the end of that account, so you would know which was which. And then I'm going to scroll down just to show you what information you're going to need to actually enter into your electricity. So if you scroll down, you're going to see this prior read date and the read date. So since you're reporting for the year 2022, the first read date that you're going to enter is going to be in December of 2021, unless it happened to be January 1st of 2022. But for most people, it will be a date in December of 2021. And then this will be the end date for that month. So 1/21/22. And then you're going to be entering information in the total kilowatt hours, which is this final column, and it's 387. So I'm going to go back. So I would name my electric grid meter with my account at the end. So I would know which account went with which meter. I'm going to change my units to kilowatt hours. And the date the meter became active is that date of the first bill that you're entering. So if this is your first year, we're going to say from that bill, it was December 21st, 2021, or whatever date it was. And then you don't need to worry about any of the rest of this information. You just need to do the type, the units, and the date that the meter became active. Say create meter. Okay, and then we will add an entry. So this is really important. Your start date needs to be whatever you put as the date that your meter became active before. If there are two different dates, it will tell you that you have a gap in data, which I will show you what that looks like later. We'll say that. It will auto-populate 1 month later, which sometimes is the right date, sometimes it's not. We'll say it's the 22nd. For kilowatt hours, 7. So this information is all from the bill that I pointed out. You don't need any of the rest of this information. We don't need cost information, any of the rest of it. We just need the start date for the period, the end date, and the usage for that period. So then you would add another entry. It will auto-populate this end date as the start date for your next bill. And you want those numbers to be the same. Again, otherwise it will tell you that you have a gap in data. So we'll say that it's 375. And then I would keep going for the entire year of 2022. The end date for your last bill will probably be in January of 2023. And then Portfolio Manager will interpolate the data. So it only gets that information from 2022. So I would go and enter the rest of it, but we'll say I entered everything and press continue. And then you will get this prompt of tell us what the meter represents. So we're going to select this first one. That's these meters account for the total energy consumption for the building. Now, for some people, if you have multiple meters in the same building or a multi-tenant building, you'll select this option and then say what the meter does account for. So that might just be the common areas for this meter, or if you have a multi-tenant building and you're just reporting for one of the tenants, you'll select this tenant and or common areas partial energy load, then you'll get another drop down and you would just say tenant electricity and select that. But again, we're gonna just say for this test building that it's just, it accounts for total energy consumption. And then apply selections. All right, so that's all you need to do for the electric once you've entered information for the entire year of 2022. And you won't need to go through that process of creating the meter again. Once you do it, that information will be there when you log in next year, and you can just continue entering new data, and it will just pull from the next year that you're reporting for. So it'll just end up being a long list. So now we're going to add a meter for heating.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
Is it something that you can do like monthly, or is it for like the electric meter? Like once we get caught up with 2022, is that something that can be done on a monthly basis, entering them in?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to enter them as your bills come, you can definitely do that if that's your preferred way of doing it.
Thank you.
That's a good question. So then we're going to say that our heating meter is natural gas. Again, we're going to say it's 1 meter and get started. Okay, and so now I'm going to pull up a Unitil bill, just to get an idea of what this looks like and where to find the information that you're looking for. So that account number is at the top. Again, if you have multiple meters, we recommend that you use this account number when naming your meter, just so you can keep track of them. And then for the period of time, the start date, this and the activation date are going to be the same. It's going to be this 12/27/2021. So they should be a December 2021 date. And then this will be the end date for your first entry. And then the units that you are entering are therms. And for this one, it's the 59.72. So let me go back. Okay, so I would name it with my account number. The units are therms, and that activation date was 12/27/2021. And I will create the meter and add an entry. So as I mentioned, you need to have the activation date be the same as your start date. I'm just going to show you what happens if it's a slightly different number. We'll auto-populate, we'll say that's right. It was 59.72. And then add another entry, say it's 65. And then when I hit continue, this error message comes up saying that one or more of your meters contains a gap or overlap in data. So that's because we put a different start date than our activation date. So I'll exit out of this and I'll change that so that it's 27th. And then you don't get that error message. And if it was the activation date that you entered incorrectly instead of the first bill date, you can go here and then go to basic meter information. And you can change that date the meter became active instead, if that's what you need to change. Cancel. Okay, then I'm going back to my energy tab. So you'll notice when I go here, I have two energy meters. One is being used to compute metrics and one is not being used to compute metrics. And that's because with my natural gas meter, I didn't go through that process of saying what the meter accounts for in the building. So I will go back down here and I will change my meter selection and select that. And again, I'm going to say for this one that it accounts for total energy consumption. If you do have multiple meters in one building, you can go here and specify what this meter does account for. So that, and I'll apply the selection. Great, and now it's saying to use to compute metrics. So now we're going to go to water. And I will add a meter. I don't have a sample water bill, but say it's municipally supplied potable water. And I'm going to say indoor. If you have any meters that are specifically outdoor, we don't need that information. But if you have a mixed indoor outdoor, that's fine. Just select that option and get started. Okay, again, I'll name this whatever I need to name it so that I know which meter it is. For units, this is going to be CCF. And then the date the meter became active, we'll say it's this date. And I'll create a meter. Add an entry. Then say the same date as the activation date. We'll say that's correct. Say 50. And then you will go through that process again for the full year of 2022 and then press continue. And that's all you'll need to enter. So again, once you've made your meter, every year you go back, you're just entering each monthly bill. You don't have to go through the process of making a meter again. Okay, so we'll go back to my property. So again, if you've entered a full year, you'll start seeing information here. We've only entered a few months for each. And if you're not sure if you've entered information correctly, you can go down here to the data quality checker to check for possible errors. And year. So December 31st, 2022 should be the year. Run the checker. So this is coming up because I didn't select what the water meter accounted for. And then I get a bunch of error messages about this is not a full year of data, or there's gaps because I didn't enter all of the information that's required for the time period I selected. You'll also notice that you'll get this property has no waste or material meters error message pop up, and that's because we're not requiring that information. So if you're getting nothing else and only this, don't worry about it. We don't require that, so it's fine. And yeah. Okay. So once you've entered that information, you've checked for errors, you're all set. Then it will be time for you to share your data. So if someone here has reported in a previous year, we are doing it a little bit differently this year. And that's because the way that we're going to show you now is a one-time process. So you're going to share your data with us. So we'll show you the steps to do that. And then once you've done it, if, as was asked before, if you're entering your data month by month, we would be able to see that as it comes up, and that's totally fine. As soon as you enter information, we'll be able to see it, so you won't have to worry about the submission process. So to do that, we're going to start by going to contacts, and you're going to add either Erin or myself as a contact. So we'll add a new contact or a connection. So you can search for us either using our names or by the username. So for Portland, it's City of Portland, Maine. I'm going to pretend I'm reporting as a Portland building. And for South Portland, it's just City of South Portland, and you can press search. And then you'll see that Erin comes up. So if we weren't already connected, there would be this blue box here, and I would just select connect. And then from there, once you've connected, and it will send us a request and we will approve the connection. And then once that happens, you can start sharing your data. So you'll select this sharing tab and then share or edit access to a property. And then select the property that you want to share. If you have both South Portland and Portland buildings, just make sure you're sending the right information to the right city. So I selected my property, and then I'm going to select Erin, it's the person I want to share my account with. And then you'll see these two options, and you want to select personalized sharing and exchange data, and then continue. So your property will pop up as well as the person you're sharing it with, and then you will select exchange data. This will automatically pop up. It's a lot of different options, but you're going to select read only for everything except this very last one. And you'll know that's the case because it's not an option. So if you go back to the top, it's none or full access, and you're going to say none for this recognition option. And then for share forward, allow Erin to share this property with others, you're going to say no. And then you would apply selections and authorize the exchange. And then your data is shared with us, and you never have to go through that process ever again. So that's it.
Yeah. I'll also just say that you should receive an automated message from us that your exchange went through and we received the sharing.
That's a good point. Thank you. Okay, so that's that. I'll go back to this. I included some pictures of what I just showed you in case, because I know that was a lot. So we'll share the slide with you after, so you can go back and look at this if you need. So we have a few exemptions and waivers that we did want to mention. And Portland and South Portland have a few different waivers in their ordinances. So Erin, if you want to start by just talking about Portland's waivers.
Yeah, so like Susan said, our exemptions written in the ordinance are slightly different. Portland's ordinance says that the exemptions are available if an building owner is able to demonstrate that they have been unable to obtain tenant authorization to obtain tenant utility data despite a good faith effort to obtain such data or such consent, that shouldn't be much of an issue this year just because we're only having single tenant buildings reporting in Portland. But if for some reason you feel like this exemption applies to you, please reach out to me for your building in Portland. We also will allow exemptions if the owner or tenant is able to demonstrate that such disclosure may result in the release of proprietary information, which can be characterized as trade secret. Again, if you feel like this exemption applies to you, I just ask that you send an exemption request to me via email. Just write down why, what exemption you're applying for, why, and any backup information that you can give me as to why you believe that this exemption applies to you. And we are able to review that each one as they come in. We can grant exemptions from there.
And for South Portland, they're a little bit different. This first exemption is the one that could apply if you have a large residential building where each unit has its own utility account. So it's due to special circumstances unique to the applicant's facility and not based on a condition caused by actions of the applicant. Strict compliance with provisions of this ordinance would cause hardship. So as we mentioned before, we anticipated having a whole building aggregated data platform available. So if you had, a building with 50 different tenants or units, you would be able to see your whole building data rather than having to request that information from every individual unit. So given that you'd have to request all that information, and then it's likely one person would have to enter all of that information. If doing so would take away significantly from your other job responsibilities, if you'd need to hire someone specifically to enter that, or if you would need to get a consultant to enter that data for you, those could all be considered a cause of hardship. So if you do feel like that's you, you can apply for a waiver under this first option. The second is that the building is undergoing substantial remodel or is being demolished. And then the final is that property is classified as industrial per designated North American industry classification system. So if you are unsure if you qualify for a waiver, please feel free to reach out to me and ask. If you're pretty sure that you do, you can submit the waiver to me via email. It just needs to be, it could be a letter attached or just in the body of the email explaining why the waiver applies to you. And we will say in the South Portland ordinance specifically, it says that waiver requests must be submitted at least 30 days prior to the benchmarking submission deadline. So as a reminder, that deadline is May 1st. So if you are requesting a waiver, you do only have a few days to get that in because it's technically an April 1st deadline. Please reach out to me if you do think that's the case and you want to apply for a waiver.
Oh, sorry, Susan. I'm also just going to add that our ordinance, if the building was sold within the year that we're requesting data from, we want to work with building owners. We think that, or in our ordinance, it states that if you don't have a full year's worth of data because you purchased the building halfway through the year or you sold the building halfway through the year, again, reach out to myself or Susan and just explain that situation, and we can work with you from there.
Thank you. Okay, and then we're just going to do a quick introduction into BEAM. So both cities signed on to BEAM very recently, and it is a benchmarking tool that will help both cities implement the ordinance and hopefully make things a little bit easier for folks. So here with us today from Clearly Energy is Sydney. Sydney, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. As Susan said, I'm here from Clearly Energy, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about a tool, BEAM, that both cities are using to help streamline the benchmarking process. Can I share my screen? Thank you. All right. Can you see Beam? Awesome. Okay. So Beam is a platform that is really meant to make the process of benchmarking easier for everyone involved. You don't have to register for a Beam account. Everything that you will need to do will happen on ESPM. That's what Susan and Erin just showed you. But we do think that there are some benefits of registering for a Beam account. So I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about what that can look like. So if you do want to register for a Beam account, Erin and Susan will provide you the link after this webinar is over. I'm just showing you the Reno, Nevada portal right now because I can't be both logged in to Portland's Beam and then also show you the login page. So if you want to create an account, you just select create my account here. It will take some basic information from you like email address, name and all of that. The important thing that I want to stress is that if you do want to register for a Beam account, we ask that you please use the same email address that you used on Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Otherwise, it will not find any of your buildings. It won't recognize that you own any properties. So that's how you'll do it. It'll, you'll get an email confirmation and then you'll be logged in. So when you do log into Beam, this is what you'll see. You'll click here into inventory, and that will show you all of the properties that you have reporting here into Beam. So in this case, I just have this one building, this fake sample K through 12 school. But if you have multiple properties, they would show up here in the inventory page. And we think that this is helpful for you just so that you can get a better sense of what Erin or Susan are seeing when they're reviewing your data and determining whether you're in compliance. So if you have questions about whether all of your properties are properly reporting, or if there's any data flags or labels on your properties, this is where you'll be able to see them. So another note I want to make is that regardless of whether or not you choose to register for a Beam account, you may get some automated communications from Beam. So those will look like, hey, we got your data. Thanks so much for submitting. You're good to go. Or we got your data. It looks like there might be something missing or something that looks like it may be a typo. So we want you to go back and double check whether that's correct. Again, all of that will happen for you on ESPM, but in Beam is where you'll be able to see a little bit more closely what Erin and Susan are seeing. So for example, you can see the data labels. So in this case, this property got this label, no Energy Star score. So that's how you'd be able to see, for example, if you click into this property detail view, why they might be, seeing that there is a missing Energy Star score. So you'll be able to scroll through all your data here, see if there's anything missing, and then you can go back on ESPM and correct that. One other resource that Beam has that I want to highlight, and again, this is something you don't need to be logged in for. So regardless of whether or not you choose to register for an account, you'll be able to take advantage of this. Is the help desk. So there's two components of the help desk. First is the knowledge base. This is sort of like an FAQ. So this is, City of Portland's knowledge base. South Portland will have one up and running soon as well. And Erin and Susan will share these links with you after this call. But this is just, some information about the benchmarking ordinance. Maybe some questions that you may have can be answered here. But then if you have any, additional questions, maybe you need to submit, an exemption request or an extension request or anything like that, you can do so by submitting a ticket or an inquiry to the city. So you'll do that by selecting new ticket. Right now we only have one set up, but there may be more, different form options coming soon. And you'll just fill in your, basic contact information here, put, the details of your inquiry here into the description, and then someone from the city will get back to you shortly. So again, this you don't need to be logged in for, but another helpful tool to help you through the benchmarking process. I think that's all on Beam, so I'm going to turn it back over to Susan.
Great, thank you. So that was everything that we had. If anyone does have any specific questions about Energy Star Portfolio Manager or the ordinances, now would be a great time to ask. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Well, if you do have questions as you go through the process, please, again, feel free to reach out to either Erin or myself. We're happy to help and walk you through. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we're going to follow up with an email that has, you know, the links that Sydney was talking about with Beam, along with those presentation slides that include screenshots of a lot of those, you know, more tedious like things that you need to fill in Portfolio Manager to get things set up. So hopefully that will be helpful. And again, we have that workshop on Wednesday next week at noon. That is a good time to just drop in and ask any questions after you've gone into Portfolio Manager and, you know, run into any issues or anything. That's a good time to just jump in and ask some questions then. But yeah, we're happy to help, and thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. All right. Bye.